Hey everybody, James Mulvany here. Welcome to Working Lunch. We're going to be kicking off today's session in about 1 minute's time. My guest today is Josh from Get Your Media. We're going to be talking all things podcasting and video, so very excited to get started. So stay where you are. We are going to be kicking off today's session in approximately 1 minute's time. James here from Working Lunch. We're going to be starting today's session in approximately 30 seconds. All right. We are live. Welcome to Working Lunch. My name is James Mulvany. Each week we go live and we speak to a different expert. And the premise of Working Lunch is really simple. We ask the guest to bring 3 actionable strategies that you can implement in your business to assist you with growing your audience, growing your team, or growing your business. This is live right now, so if you have any questions throughout the session, please put them in the comments. We're going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So really excited to get started. So without further ado, let's bring today's guest in. Josh, how's it going? Hang on, you're on mute. That's my fault.
Oh,
there we go. How's it going?
Very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. So to begin with, let's start off with a bit of an intro. Tell us about yourself, what you do, and how you kind of got involved with it.
Yeah, my name's Josh Gudgeon. I own Get Your Media, so we do video production and podcast production in Leeds, and I also create content online on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I've been doing it for a good few years now, but as we said just off air a minute ago, it's not where I started. I actually started. I was in the Navy when I left school, joined the Navy, spent 7 years at sea, and it was whilst I was away that I sort of started dabbling with videography and photography and pursued it as a career as I was leaving. So,
how did you get into that then? Because you were an engineer in the Navy, right? So I guess you kind of have like a sort of technical mind, but I'm kind of curious to see how you made that transition in the first place.
Yeah, I think for me it was I really enjoyed my time at sea, and I joined as a lower rank, and then after a few years I transferred to become an officer, went through all that training, and that for me was a very transferable skill into business. And I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Like I really enjoy meeting people, and I've always enjoyed the thought of one day running my own business or working for myself. And I can safely say that I'm unemployable now after doing it. But I was just doing it as a hobby as I was sort of coming towards the end of my career. Really sort of like I fell in love with sort of the YouTuber stuff, like Casey Neistat, the daily vlogs, stuff like that.
Right.
And I saw the styles. And then I saw some people like Peter McKinnon and some like heavy filmmakers that were bringing real cinematic sequences into free YouTube content. I was like, that's amazing. And then again, just being methodical about it, looking at what kit they use, the techniques, how do they do it? And then like you said, the sort of engineering side of it, well, what are the rules to shoot video? What are the rules to shoot photography? Obviously putting it to manual, you've got shutter speed, aperture, ISO to contend with different frame rates. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed sort of learning the rule sets and then how you can manipulate that into creating high quality content. And I did that, sort of learned it, and then went into sort of freelancing as I left, worked for a bike company, a local motorbike company. And I wanted to sort of put it into practice. So I started vlogging for them, for that company. And I thought if I could take the vlog style, like the Gas Monkey Garage, Orange County Choppers style, but put it into a YouTube show, there were 2 ways it could have gone. Like I wanted to either pursue it where we could potentially take it to like Discovery Channel, build up the characters. But the main reason was to just break down the barrier between a customer that had never been into a bike shop and the people that work there, create them as characters on screen, ultimately break down the barrier between the potential customer and us, and attract more people into the store. And within 3 months, I'd got the YouTube channel to nearly 4,000 subscribers. One video went viral. I think it's done nearly 800,000 views on YouTube now. It did millions on Facebook. Wow. But in that time, it doubled the bike sales of the bike shop. So they went from selling like 50 bikes to 100. We increased the footfall to the restaurant, and they've got like a tattoo studio, a barber, a diner. And I built my personal brand as such on that as a creator. That relationship ended, and I've said, right, I'm going to do it for myself. So I set up Get Your Media took what I knew there and went to like a big car franchise and said, I've just done this at a bike shop, I can do it for you, and signed them up on my first retainer, and just sort of went from there.
That's good. That's a really good story. So I think kind of key takeaway from that is just go into changing career. I guess is an intimidating thing. I've got a friend who recently came out of the Navy, and he was petrified when he was that, especially that day when he signed off, and he was like, what am I going to do? Yeah. So I think actually just being brave, starting with employer. Were they apprehensive at all to begin with when you kind of pitched them this idea?
So what it was, they were not using any sort of media to sell, so they were just using pictures, and it were an aesthetically pleasing place, but they were selling bikes are pretty sexy, like the cool items,
cool thing,
so they look cool on an iPhone picture. But I'm like, well, imagine if you made a video out of it, like imagine if you sold it using a video. And the guy just said, come down, make me a video, and if it works, we'll use you. So I made him one video, and he's like, right, we need you here like all the time.
Perfect.
Like, cool, let's do it. So like one video converted it, and they're like, right, we want you to do it. And it took me 3 months, and we got like everything that I thought I could have achieved in a year or 2 years. I did it in like 3 months, and I was like, this is it. This is the one.
That's a great story. So in theory, that one video basically changed your life, really.
But I think then the entrepreneurial side was like, I also knew the numbers. I knew how much money we made them, and I knew how much I'd got paid. And I'm like, this is right. I need to do this for myself. Like this guy's driving a Porsche GT3, and I'm like, what? I need to do this myself.
Cool, right? I mean, that's a really interesting story, and I think it sounds like you kind of got into a business in a very similar way to me, in that you kind of just you didn't have any kind of formal training, you've learned on the job, and you've just got stuck in, and I think that stands for a lot. So let's get cracking. Let's start talking about video. So first of all, video production tips. This is a very loose subject. So I'm curious to see on what your view on this is. And also one of the questions to sort of kick things off is like lo-fi versus hi-fi. At the moment, obviously everyone's been in lockdown. So I think people are getting much more used to seeing videos that aren't necessarily, top end production, people shooting stuff from home. So let's kick things off.
I think for like one thing that I'd say about video production, obviously we could go like down so many rabbit holes here, but I think if we're looking at video production and personal branding for a company, I think a lot of people get the personal branding side wrong. I think, they want to like put the kids in it or put personal things in there, and that's not what it's about.
Right.
People say to me all the time, I didn't realize you were married. I didn't realize this. And I'm like, because all of my content, it's like I've selected what content's gone out there, and it's personal branded around what we do, what I do for a living.
Yes.
But I think a lot of business owners initially think personal branding means, I need to like give more of myself to the audience. Okay. So for me, you don't want to see the personal things of a person. You want to see the personal things of the company to help bring a bit of character to a company. And in the same vein, I think when you are making content for your company using video production, think about how badly it could affect the company brand. So low production value. If somebody's got a perceived idea of what your company is and what it does, like Podcast.co, you could look at that and you might be like, wow, it's an amazing company. They've got a sweet studio in Manchester. It looks massive. It looks great. And then you put your first personal branded video out on LinkedIn, and you sat in your car, on an iPhone video, and ahhing, and it just completely destroys this perception of the brand because there's been no actual thought gone into the videos that you're putting out there to try and sell your services. So I think I have like one tip for video production. If you're going to start making talking head videos or any sort of pieces of content for LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, practice first. Like if you're intending releasing content in a month's time, just sit there and talk to the camera every night for 30 days and look at how much better you got from day 1 to day 30, and watch how much more clear you speak, how much better delivery you've got. Look at how you formulate a video like this, intro, a bit of a bulky bit of content and a call to action. Practice that and then release it, but don't just on day 1 go, right, I'm going to release a video and just sit in your car, and I hope you enjoy it, and then put it out, because it'll just destroy your company brand.
Interesting. That's funny, because the first video I ever put out on YouTube was for an old business I had called Wave Streaming, and it was literally that. I just didn't really. I was like, well, this new thing. This was like 2008, so it was yonks ago now. But there was this new thing from called YouTube, and I was just like, well, I don't really know what to say, so I'm kind of just going to say like, hello, welcome to our channel, blah blah blah, and it was just really much on the fly. I didn't necessarily put much thought into it. It looked all right because my friend had a big fancy video camera, so it wasn't awful, but. certainly when I look back at it now, I think, well, what was the purpose of that video? It didn't really serve any kind of purpose at all. It was just me kind of mumbling my way and sort of saying, welcome to our office and blah, blah, blah. But actually, I think you kind of make a very good point there, in that I think strategy as well is everything. Like thinking about your audience, what you want to achieve from it is kind of the first step, as well as actually becoming confident on camera. And it's interesting you say that, sit in front of a camera and just practice talking to it, because this is a question that comes up a lot. Like people are like, oh, I'm scared of talking to camera, or I don't think I come across very well. And we get this all the time. I don't like the sound of my own voice when they're recording, podcasts. So you think it's quite important to practice.
Totally. I mean, no one likes the sound of their own voice because you're not used to hearing it back. Like when we have people in the studio and they sit with the headphones on and they're going, oh my God, is that what I sound like? It's like, yeah, that's what you sound like. That's what you look like. And only you care what you sound and you look like. Everybody else, they're not actually that bothered. Yeah. So you just need to take a breath. Don't worry about it. Like you do sound and look the way that you look, but no one's going to be judging you as heavily as you think that they're going to be judging you, because everyone's got their own stuff to worry about. Like that's where I guess the value-led content is really important as well, because you don't just want to make a long, like laborious piece of content. You want to get it short and sweet and offer tons of value to someone so that they pay attention, so that they can actually retain whatever you've given them in as short period of time as possible, really. I think, to start with anyway.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So obviously you mentioned as well, you do podcasting, you've got a studio set up there. Is this something new that you've just kind of recently started offering to clients?
No, it was an accident. I probably set up this podcast studio like 18 months ago. And it was because of, for me, it was like, how can I get my name out there and network? And because I'd come from a vlogging background, so like vlogging's very time consuming to obviously deliver that narrative, all the scenes, and then the editing and trying to release it. I didn't have time to do that anymore when I was trying to start a business. And I knew that podcasting was such an easy form of content that I could repurpose a million times. Yeah. So I just went all in, bought all the equipment, set up a studio and just made it for myself. And I set up 2 podcasts. I've got one that's like a personal passion project that I do with a former UFC fighter called All Stars MMA podcast. And we interview fighters, and we're heavily in that scene, and that's cool. And then I set up a business podcast called The Millennial's Guide to Business, which is the most millennial way that you're going to like learn about business. I'll just interview a bunch of guys that have set up their own company, and I'll learn from them. And then my listeners can listen and they'll learn from them, and it'll scale up my audience, my network. And I describe it to clients. I'm like, it's like networking on steroids, because I don't have to go to a local BNI and sit with the milkman turned business coach. I can sit with like an expert who's happily obliged to sit on a podcast with me, and we can learn from each other, and my name will go out to their audience and theirs to mine. And it worked. So what's your take on using it as a tool to generate leads as well then? I think it's a natural byproduct. I mean, I'm not I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a massive, I don't like to sell. It's just not my style. I think if you can offer enough value in the content, it proves your expertise, where people will naturally call up. And if you look at a customer journey sort of sequence for my company, there's that much content out there from Get Your Media, from me, like Josh Gudgeon as a personal brand, and my YouTube channel and my podcast. If anybody wanted to get a video done or a podcast or engage with it in any way, they can do all of their research and marketing and make a decision. So at the point of at the end of that, they can make a decision and go, right, I don't want to work with him, or I really like them. I like the style. They've got an idea of cost and what we're about. So they're just ready to buy. So there's no tire kicking. There's no pointless meetings. I don't have to go for hours and hours to networking events. Yeah. I've put all my eggs into the content basket, and that serves as our lead generation and our customer journey sort of tool. How do you make sure people are taking action and actually picking up the phone or getting in touch with you then? Obviously we'll put a call to action at the end of any video, but it proofs in the pudding. It's just a case of how many emails, calls, and DMs do we get? Right. I've since lockdown. So obviously before lockdown, it looked really bad for the business. We had a bunch of work cancelled, or we've got staff, we've got rent to pay. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. And during lockdown, I just fell back on what I knew, and it was making content. So I fired up the podcast again for a second season, went live on LinkedIn like you did, interviewed a bunch of experts about what's going on, offered tips about video production. How can you make videos? What should you be doing? We're not trying to sell to anyone, just what value can you offer to an audience? Just build an audience. And it was one of them where I sort of said to some of the audience that may have thought about creating videos beforehand, imagine if you would have had decent product videos or decent testimonials or anything as a digital asset whilst in lockdown. And now we can't film them, and you've not got them in the bank, you know. So really, as if you're a business, look at engaging with a company near you to build out your digital assets, so that you can market to them in, you know, not the conventional way of sending a BDM to a unit or whatever.
And your company's based in Leeds, so has most of your content been focused on the local market, or have you just picked up clients all over the place, or what's been your approach there?
Not all. I mean, we've worked across the country, and we've got a lot of good clients in Manchester city centre. We've got a lot of clients in like really like rural, you know, out of the city, just good industrial companies that we work with, you know, like as market's pretty broad. We've worked with like sporting companies. So we did like the Badminton World Championships, the All England Championships before lockdown. And that meant we got to work with Man United and, you know, some big brands like that. So we work everywhere, you know, just because we're based outside of Leeds as well. We don't have to pay for a massive Leeds city centre office because we don't actually do a lot of work in Leeds city centre. We do it all over the place.
Cool. That sounds really interesting. So, you know, kind of takeaways from that, basically get podcasting, use it as a way to speak to interesting people. And, you know, your perspective on it's been beneficial to the business. You've learned from the episodes that you've recorded, but also, you know, you've made connections, and you think kind of people organically are just sort of drawn towards your company because you know, you're putting sort of your best foot forward, you know, demonstrating your knowledge and your area of expertise.
Yeah, and also I think like you obviously know how powerful podcasting is, but I think there's no hiding, like on especially live and the podcast. It's so personal in someone's ear that they can tell if somebody's, you know, basically lying, or it's so personal to an audience, and you get such a connection with an audience that they do trust you as an authority in whatever you're actually speaking about. So you want to make sure that the value that you're giving to them is true and it's right. And I think that's the power of podcasting specifically, and having your digital assets and an audience online. You know, you build up a rapport without ever actually meeting them. It's really powerful.
And also to touch on that, if anyone's got any questions, please put them in the comments. We've already had a few interesting ones come through. Happy to do a bit of a Q&A at the end. And I think, you know, like you say, when you're building up that rapport with people, I think, again, answering questions and making sure that you're really listening to your audience is hugely crucial. You know, because ultimately, if someone gets the name called out, they gets the question answered, especially on like a live stream, you know, he's providing value, and it's, you know, really helps cement that relationship, I think.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
So sort of let's move on to the final topic, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A. YouTube, obviously, I guess this is where you kind of got started, really. What was on YouTube, was it?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, obviously it was on a company channel that I was working with before. And I saw how powerful it was. And since that, I wish that, you know, when it was all said and done, I could have taken that audience and took them onto my channel, but it was a different audience, a completely defined audience that was separate to what I'm doing. And it's only recently that I've really, this year, so January 1st, I'm like, right, I'm having a run at YouTube this year. I want to get back into making high quality content for a channel, build up that audience, potentially monetize it as another revenue stream for myself against, you know, as opposed to the business. And so since the 1st of January, I started releasing content, very niched it down, filmmaking, tutorials, vlogs, behind the scenes about what's going on with video production, and just trying to offer value on how to make videos and things like that. And have it personality driven. Like, I'm not really heavy on the tech. I just want to be myself, put content out that's kind of fun to watch, even if you're not a massive camera fan or a video fan. I want it still to be engaging enough that people are like, oh, actually, it was worth watching that. And I've seen some nice growth since then. You know, I've got my channel monetized, done a couple of brand deals, and I've sort of had a glimpse at what's possible as a YouTuber. You know. Yeah,
that's interesting. So you're going to keep that up then? Is that the plan?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we've got to the point now where we've kind of hit capacity at Get Your Media as a company, and there's only two ways it can go. I can either take on more staff, but that's more pressure on myself, or we just stick to delivering for the clients that we've got, and we'll take on the odd job. We're booked up now until, you know, nearly December. But I've made a point of saying, right, we're not taking on any more clients because it will then affect my upload schedule for YouTube, which at the minute it's not making a lot of money, but I do want to. That is something I'm pursuing this year massively. So
that's interesting. So it's just trying to find the balance of the two, and I think, again, you know, the bigger you grow your channel, I guess it will open up more opportunities for the business as well. You know, what advice would you give to a company that sort of, I mean, I still think a lot of people have this perspective. They have this perspective that it's kind of too late to start on YouTube. There's too much competition, or there's just too much noise out there. So, what do you think about that?
I disagree. I think everyone's got their own style and vibe. Like if you make, ultimately, people kind of look at YouTube and Instagram and Facebook as like the vanity metrics. They want to look at it and go, all right, I want 1 million views. I want this just because it looks good, Whereas if you look at it as a lead generation tool for your business, if let's say you get 100 views, and that's on a good day, you get 100 views, but that's 100 of your ideal client that are engaging and just like watching you. And then out of those 100, 10 of them decide to drop you an email. Like, what would you do if tomorrow 10 customers just dropped on your doorstep and like, we want to work with you?
Yeah.
Like for what we do, we'd be overwhelmed. We'd be like, whoa, we can't even take on 10 more clients,
Yeah.
So I think all businesses need to look at the content that they generate, make sure it's valuable, but don't look at the vanity metrics. Look at how it's actually performing for the business. I think that's a main thing.
Quality over quantity, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say every business should be on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Google's the largest search platform in the world, and Google owns YouTube, so that's the second largest search engine in the world. So if you're not on YouTube, anything that you do, testimonials, put them on your website. Put them on YouTube, and it can drive traffic back to your website. In the description box, you can put how to contact you. All these things, once you do the SEO and the tagging, like I do, I co-host a podcast on a channel called Starting Up, a guy called Greg Brees, and he specializes in like, how can you earn money on YouTube? Yeah. And he's got like, I think 50,000 subscribers now. He generates a full-time income as a YouTuber, teaching people how to generate money on YouTube.
Right.
So it's how to optimize a YouTube channel correctly so that it does sort of serve you in the way that it should, not just, let's just upload a video and hope for best. It's like, have you got a good thumbnail? Have you put the SEO and the tags in? Have you got a good description? All these little things that you need to think about. It's like, if you upload a video, it's not just like, we're going to film a video and upload it. Like there's all that time in SEO research, title research, thumbnails. That sometimes takes longer than actually making the video.
I think so, yeah. And so, what advice would you give to a business who perhaps was, they want to start going on YouTube, or they want to start creating videos? Like, what sort of videos should they be creating? Where's a good starting point?
I think any business, if you're working with customers, look at getting testimonials, because it's all well and good you saying how good you are, but if a customer is actually willing to give up their time to say how good you are, that's worth 10 times more than you saying that you're good. Like if a customer can say, I vouch for these guys, they've delivered really well for us. Yeah. Get a professional testimonial done, whatever it costs you, even a freelancer, they might knock one up for 500 quid for you. Yeah. 500 quid, but that's like it's evergreen content. It'll last forever saying how good you are. And that's I personally think it's worth more than paying, targeted Facebook ads trying to lead generate like that. I think if you just offer valuable market material that people can consume at their own rate, it'll pay for itself.
It's a really interesting point, that, because we've spent quite a bit of time and obviously money actually going and interviewing some of our customers. Mainly, so for example, like we did a bunch where we sent a few of our guys down to London. I think it was December before last, and we interviewed a few different clients who are members of our radio streaming platform. And they run different cool little radio projects in London. And I think it was really interesting to actually visualize what was going on. And I think for other customers who are going into that journey, like actually then seeing the result, the physical result, and seeing that these people doing these interesting things with using our platform, that's really, really useful, because it's not just taking something that's kind of on the internet and sort of exists in the cloud and then suddenly turning it into something that's actually tangible, and why you can see that this is a real thing that people have set up. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think when you're online, you're in this kind of like little bubble, aren't you? So sometimes testimonials kind of help take the customer along that journey and show, whatever product or service you might have, here it is in real life, so to speak.
Totally. And like what you're doing now, obviously, this style of content, it proves that you're a real person, there's a person that's behind a company. So like behind Podcast.co or Matchmaker, like they can see, oh, right. Yeah, it's James. I understand. I can get a bit of a feel for what he's about. It's worth its weight in gold, I think. Like I think content's just that build, like you said, building that trust, it's massive.
Yeah, because there's too many websites out there you land on, and it just feels like it's just an anonymous web page, right?
Yeah, all massive sales funnels that are just just trying to lead you down this path to buy something. Like, it's
cool.
not my bag, that.
Right. Okay. If anyone's got any questions, we've got a few coming in here. Please put them in the comments. Let's kick some questions off. This comes in from Debbie. She's got a couple, actually. Hi, Debbie. What are your thoughts on numbering episodes on a YouTube channel?
For me, I kind of can see the appeal to it with, vloggers do it. A lot of vloggers say, they'll do a daily vlogs and then they'll number it and then they'll split them up into seasons when they've obviously hit a point where they might do 100 days in a row, 100 episodes. Like, right, I'm going to take a break and bring back a second season. It does make sense for things like that, but I just don't think it's necessary. I'm not a massive expert on the SEO side of it, like Greg, who I do the other podcast with, he'd be able to say, but just throwing numbers in your title, I don't know how that would affect the search engine optimization of YouTube.
Yeah.
Me personally, I title my videos in a way that I want them to be clicked on at any time, so that anybody can click on it rather than a returning subscriber who can be like, oh, it's episode 243 is here. Well, that doesn't help a new audience member, does it? If they're rocking up and like, I've got to catch up on 243 episodes, I'm out. I can't commit to that. It's like trying to start Game of Thrones now. You've got like six seasons behind.
Yeah, I never started Game of Thrones either. And just to add to that as well, I think always try and summarize what is contained within the video, or the main key learning point of that video as the title, because that's kind of what people wanting to know. And if you can sort of phrase the title as a question, they will then watch the video to find the answer. Whereas if it's just like episode number, blah, blah, and then it's just so-and-so from so-and-so, doesn't always really mean much to sort of someone who's just having to land on that video. So another question from Debbie: what are some ways to ask someone to be interviewed on a podcast that is a benefit to them without coming across as too sort of desperate or salesy?
I mean, like my biggest thing is now everyone's a DM away. So like your favorite celebrity, influencer, anybody is like one direct message away, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Just ask them. It's a simple value exchange. It's not. I've heard people paying to go on podcasts and things like that before, but you've got to look at it and where does it align with you and what you're doing as a business, and what's the benefit to them, and just offer it to them. Say, look, I've got an audience that I'm doing a podcast about this. I think you'd be an expert to give us an insight. And chances are they're going to say, yeah, it's not going to be a case of, oh, I need to make sure that you've got 10,000 downloads or whatever. Chances are they're going to be happy to do it because it's of value to them. Like, that's content that they could repurpose.
Yeah. And if they say no, it's not the end of the world. It's just one of those things. Also, probably a good idea to pitch Matchmaker.fm at this point, which is nice. So, Debbie, if you're not already on Matchmaker, it's a community. It's a website that I actually have. It's part of Podcast.co. And it's basically a community full of people who are looking to be featured on podcasts, and for podcasters who are looking for guests. Completely free to sign up. So maybe get yourself on there, because it'd be a great way of meeting people. And that everyone on there is all predisposed to wanting to be featured on podcasts. So you're going to find very little friction. Okay, another question from Joe. It says, hi Josh, how much would it cost me for a basic podcast setup, 2 decent mics, camera, mixer, and any software? This is a question we got asked a lot as well, actually.
I mean, what did you say, for a decent or a basic one?
Yeah, well, I mean, he says for a basic podcast setup, two mics, 2 decent mics, camera, mixer, and software.
I think just the setup that we've got, like the mics that we're looking at, they're about 200 quid each, I think, the Rode ones, and then we use a Rodecaster, so that's probably 500 quid. But then you've got headphones for another 100 quid, and mic stands and stuff like that. So he starts knocking up. You start going up into thousands, but you definitely don't need that. I think you could like look at an external audio recorder like a Zoom H6. I can't remember exactly how much they are. They're a couple of £100. But again, just some decent microphones to plug into your computer and use something like GarageBand.
Yeah,
you can get a very minimal setup for not a lot of money. And again, like I'd always recommend filming it as well. So you just use your phone to film it, and you've got video and audio, and you can repurpose until cows come home. So a couple of £100, you're going to get set up. But for me, as you'll probably be saying, James, is like, I want to hear professional audio. Like if I'm listening to a podcast, there's nothing worse than somebody that's got one of them, like, I forget what they're called, like the globe style
snowball,
microphone.
Blue snowball,
and they've put it in the middle of a warehouse with 4 of them sat around it.
Yeah,
it's like I ain't listening to that. No way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, again, it's one of these questions. It's a bit like how long is a piece of string? You can spend 500 quid on a pretty good setup. You can spend $5,000 on a really good setup. Just spend what you can afford. I think it's worth investing in a good quality microphone first and foremost, because like you said before, you don't want your listeners to fatigue. And actually, even with video, if the video is not great quality, like just now, I'm just using my webcam, but the audio is good quality, it definitely helps. Also, just look at like USB interface. So there's one called Scarlett 2i2. It's about 200. It's about 100 quid actually. You can plug 2 XLR mics in.
Yeah,
it's really portable, so you can still move it around and put it in a laptop. And I've been using those interfaces for years for all sorts of stuff, and they're really good as well. So worth checking out. Okay, what are some easy video production tools for beginners?
I guess from an editing standpoint, the free editing suites that are out there now are unbelievable. I mean, Adobe Rush is an example, which is like your base before you go into Premiere Pro and After Effects and all these things. Adobe Rush is unbelievable. Like I was gobsmacked when I did a video like training course for business owners, and I couldn't believe how good Adobe Rush was. And the fact that it sort of like does cloud sharing. So across all devices, if you put your videos and stuff in there, you can go from editing it on your phone and then just log in on your computer and it's there, or on your iPad and it's there. So there's that. I think, iMovie as an editing suite for Apple users, unbelievable before Final Cut Pro.
Right.
And for filming, you can use your phone. I've made videos on my channel about the pros and cons of using a mobile phone. It'll definitely, with the resolution of like the new, like the new iPhone 11 Pro, like they've got some Unreal cameras on them. But for the versatility of switching lenses and things like that, I would then start looking down the route of getting a mirrorless or a DSLR camera that you can interchange lenses. You get a bit more dynamic with your shots.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you build listeners for your podcast?
It's a tough one. For me, I think it's providing high quality content over time. It ain't gonna happen overnight. I mean, it might do. Like if you're already an influencer, like we've got a guy that we do podcasts for. Like, I mean, Josh Warrington, as an example, IBF featherweight world champion, like massive audience. He's going to release a podcast. Everyone's going to listen. Same for Liam Harrison. He's been on Joe Rogan twice. 500,000 Instagram followers. He launched a podcast, and after week 2, we were like in the top 10 on iTunes. Wow. He's already got an audience. But for us mere mortals, it's a case of just delivering good content over a period of time, sharing it with the right people, and then they will then pass it on. I just think you've got to, with any sort of content, you've just got to commit to the time. It's not just a one-hit wonder. You've got to
be consistent. I completely agree, Josh. And I think this is a question that a lot of people ask. Like, I think people almost are under the illusion there's some sort of secret or like a magic bullet, or there's some sort of magic thing that no one's talking about. But actually, it's just the obvious stuff, and it is just hard. It is just hard work. Like, people always ask me, feel like there's some sort of secret that we can tell them, which will magically get them millions of listeners. Unfortunately, there's not. You've got to be consistent, like you said, produce good quality content. And if you have some marketing budget to spend, and your market and your target audience, that's another way that you can use to kind of drive traffic to your podcast as well. Don't have to necessarily spend a lot. You might have a budget of a couple of $100 a month, but spending that money will make a difference. And like you said before, repurposing content is huge as well.
And one more point I'd make on that is what does a good audience look like to you? Because what's the marketing objective of the podcast? Is it just a passion project? You just want a bunch of listeners and that's it? Then that's cool. You could market it out there and get a bunch of listeners if you can. Or is it to drive traffic or sales or leads to your business? Like what does good look like at that point?
Cool. All right, Josh. Well, thanks very much for your time today. Just to finish off, if anyone wants to find out more about what you guys do, if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yes, if you want to know more about sort of my company, getyourmedia.co.uk, follow me on, connect with me on LinkedIn and on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle's @thejoshgudgeon. So I put out a lot of stuff on there. And again, my YouTube channel, it's growing nicely now. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. I'm releasing content on a weekly basis about filmmaking, video production, all that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, just follow us on any of them. And if you want to get in touch, just drop me a message. I'll reply.
Nice one. Josh, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great.
Thank you, James. Cheers, mate.